Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Diminishing Returns, the weekly show that tells you about films that we've watched or something, whatever, whatever our thing is now. Hello, I'm Alan, and over there with me as always is Sol.
You rang.
I did ring you, Sol, about 10 minutes ago when we first started. Yes.
I sounded more like Orson Welles or something, man. That didn't work.
Yeah, so what were you trying to do an impression of there, Sol?
Lurch, the butler.
Oh no, Lurch the butler from the Addams Family.
Yeah, I believe he improv'd that line and it made them all laugh. I think he was just meant to be mute originally.
He is in the film. You're talking about the TV series in the 60s, because in the films...
Does he not say you rang in the films at all?
Lurch is mute. No, not at all.
Oh.
He is mute, yes.
Well, there you go. I did rewatch two of these films.
Oh, yeah?
But obviously... Oh, it's all blurred into one, Alan.
Well, let's just break down what we're doing. So we're looking at the Addams Family, primarily because they're doing a new Addams Family film. We'll talk about that later. But basically, a little bit of background. Addams Family was started out as a series of cartoon...
Comic strips.
Comic strips, yeah, by Charles Addams.
In the New Yorker. Alan, you might not know this about me, but I have a number of framed pictures and things around my flat. It's very well decorated. I have a David Bowie Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust album cover poster. I have a painting of a T-Rex I did. I have a still frame from an episode of Futurama that I printed out. Not an animation cell.
Is it a good frame?
Not made of money.
What is it? What does it show?
It is. If you're this much of a nerd that you'll know it. It's a shot from an episode where there's a little tiny planetoid that they're on, and they run all the way around it, and there's like a shot of the planetoid, and everyone stood on it in silhouette, and it's just very nice. I thought, I'll have that.
Okay. If you know what episode of Futurama that is, call in and win a record. We've got
that's a record, as in the world record for first person to call in doing it. You're not going to
first person to call into a show that has no phone number.
Yeah. My favourite probably picture on the wall is an old classic Charles Addams Family cartoon from the New Yorker, all blown up.
So which one have you got?
I've got the one they adapted into the opening sequence from the first Addams Family film, the one of Christmas carolers singing, and the Addamses up on the top of the house with a boiling thing of oil about to pour it over them.
I didn't know there was such a direct reference in the film. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, okay, if you clearly know your history of the Addams Family, so why don't you tell us where it came from? Go on, you do the storytelling.
Well, yeah. The point I was making is that I am a fan, I suppose, and I have seen every single episode of the 1964 Addams Family sitcom, which is, I think, often forgotten. I think most people who were kids in the 90s just know of the Addams Family as, it's that Angelica Houston movie.
Yeah.
Or, Addams Family Values. How hilarious. I love the second one's the best one. Oh, it's so funny.
Stop giving away the picture of this episode.
It's partly true of myself. I probably first came to these guys from the tie-in 1990s cartoon show that they made to tie in with those films. But no, I've seen most of the Addams Family stuff that's out there, as well as the Munsters. I don't know if we're going to touch on the Munsters this week, or if we'll save it for a Munsters episode. Who knows? Basically, to me, the definitive version of the Addams Family is the 1964 sitcom. I mean, frankly, the films we're talking about this week, the Addams Family movies, they are the equivalent of the Ben Stiller Starsky and Hutch movie.
Yeah.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson Baywatch.
Yeah.
It's a TV show revival. It's a hey guys, remember this? And that is literally what it is. Scott Rudin, the producer, the story goes he was on I'm going to say the Warner Brothers movie lot. It could have been any movie lot, I don't know. And apparently he and some other people that were driving from one set to another started humming the theme tune, and it was that classic, they all start singing along and go doodle-doo, bum, bum. And he thought, there's still a real nostalgia here for this property. Let's do a film cashing in on it.
Fair enough. That's what makes him the big money producer, those sort of moments.
Exactly. And it was quite an early example of that, to be honest. I can't think of many TV show revivals that predate the Addams Family in that sort of way. I'm sure there were plenty, but none spring to mind.
Yeah, as an actual kind of complete reworking kind of update rather than a spin-off directly.
Yeah, Charles Addams, famous, well-renowned cartoonist. He drew these weird, macabre family members from time to time. Then in 1964, ABC, I believe it was, decided to adapt it to television. But they were not particularly well fleshed out. None of the characters even had names. So he was involved in the adaptation process, and it really is the 1964 TV show that solidified what the Addams Family actually is, beyond just these quirky little drawings. I mean, it was John Astin who played Gomez, who chose the name Gomez. I believe Charles Addams gave him a selection between Gomez and Rapelli.
Yeah.
And, for example, he threw the name Pubert out there for
Pugsley,
and the network said, no, you can't do that. It sounds like pubes.
Yeah, because it's Pubert.
But obviously that came back in a later film, paying reference to it. And so, the 60s TV show, I don't think it ran very long. It ran for 2 seasons, but this was the olden days when a season was like 40 episodes.
Yeah, 64 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
But just to tie it in with what you were saying earlier, The Munsters was on at the same time and only ran for 2 seasons as well.
Yeah.
And from what
debuted within the same week.
From what I read, certainly The Addams Family, it never did that well. It did a couple of seasons and they were like, oh, this is not really anything special.
Yeah.
Chuck it. So, and The Munsters got more repeated over the years where The Addams Family didn't. I think that's why The Munsters had a bit more of a kind of mainstream... maybe, I don't know. But the problem with this analogy is that the Addams Family, because of these films, has taken on a different form, a different idea in the cultural zeitgeist. So it's hard to judge now, and I can't remember before that.
The Munsters is very much the sort of the ants to the Pixar's Bugs Life. It's it's the kind of knockoff version that isn't as well regarded and what have you. Honestly, and I do go back and forth on this, because I've seen every episode of The Munsters as well, Alan, would you believe it?
Obviously. I would believe that, yes.
Yeah. I think I prefer The Munsters. There's not a lot in it. They're both, they bring different things to the table. I mean, in a nutshell, the Addams Family is the aristocracy, whereas the Munsters is your working class family. Yeah. But also... the Addams Family are, with a handful of exceptions, they're basically normal, not supernatural people. They're just a bit quirky and spooky and kooky.
Mysterious and kooky.
Yeah. Whereas the Munsters are, it's a Frankenstein and a Dracula and a Wolfman. But then the Addamses are actually weird and don't understand why people think that aren't even aware that people think they're weird. They're just oblivious to it. Whereas the Munsters are all just perfectly normal, ordinary people who look scary. And, the joke's true. They also don't seem to be aware that people think they look scary. And apart from the daughter the daughter in the Munsters is a perfectly normal-looking, blonde, attractive young woman. And the joke is, she didn't get any of our good looks. Poor girl, she'll never be a looker. And so it's inconsistent.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
But that is basically the joke of the Addams Family as well. That's the one joke that's been adapted into this entire media empire is backwards. Everything's backwards.
Yeah.
Hey, Alan, you know that stuff you think's good? Well, I think it's bad, and I think the bad stuff's good.
Yeah.
But
well, Hey
Alan, this episode, the sound, due to how we're recording it, the sound quality might not be as good as usual, but because it's the Addams Family, we think that's good. We like bad sound quality. Get it?
It's a homage.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm not as familiar with the original TV series as you appear to be, but I did watch a few episodes.
Oh, I wish you'd come to me. I would have given you some of the better ones, because the Addams Family, it's largely all the same, but there are a handful of standout episodes that are beautiful sitcom farce, like really high quality early examples of like full on just farce. There's a Christmas special. I don't suppose you watched that one.
No.
That's the one that springs to mind, which is genuinely very funny, because if I recall, it's something like the kids are told that Father Christmas isn't real, or find out he's not real, but the whole family decide that actually they don't want them to be disappointed, and I can't remember why they don't communicate this to each other. There is a reason for it. Every single member of the family dresses up as Father Christmas and then like makes their way into the kid's bedroom that night. So they basically get visited by 6 or 7 different Father Christmases one by one, and bringing them the same gift over and over and over. And it's just the way it sort of ramps up is not only funny, but feels very modern. You know, it ends with like Cousin It or someone dressed as Father Christmas popping up at the end, who was never a series regular, although the films might make you think otherwise. So which ones did you watch?
I watched the first episode. I thought I'll set it up.
Yeah.
I picked one randomly in the middle, and then I think I watched the last episode just to see if it had changed at all over the course of the thing, which it hadn't at all. It was
I don't think
very
there's
much
any attempt at closure. Is there? It's
no.
Different time.
But the one I watched in the middle, which had a kind of curious sitcom element to it that was just made me laugh at it, not with it. Where the whole sort of story hinges around.
It's not the one where Morticia plays her sister, the woman with a split screen down the middle.
I did see that one. That might have been the last episode that I watched.
Well, I think there's a few of them with her, but yeah.
Well, but she was in that one, yeah.
Okay.
But the concept they had at the centre of the one I watched was Pugsley was mistaken. They thought they'd turned Pugsley into a baby chimp. Where in fact they actually hadn't, and the farcical elements that it was almost Father Ted-esque in its obviously worked backwards. The way they introduced this chimp to the household was it sort of knocks on the window and Pugsley lets it in and goes, "Oh, hello,
I forgot this episode.
Do you want to come in?" and then they have to get him dressed like Pugsley so that the family mistake him for him later.
Yeah.
And so he puts the chimp down and it starts holding a t-shirt that's exactly the same as the one Pugsley's wearing. He's like, "Oh, do you like that t-shirt? I got 2 of them. Let's put it on you." and then there's this whole sort of farcical element to get them to a point where they think that they've swapped places and Pugsley goes missing. So
that's Pugsley. Pugsley? I thought there was a resemblance.
I cast a spell on him.
Beginner's luck, if you ask me.
It was weak writing. And I found that the few episodes that I watched on a whole were not very funny, but there was sort of incessant laugh track constantly, which really bugged me as well.
I just love to hear the sound of children at play.
They're really having a go at it today.
Those educational toys are marvelous. They keep the children off the streets. By the way, dear, Wednesday is celebrating the loss of her front tooth.
Oh, she looks much prettier without it.
My general, in a nutshell, review of the old sitcom is it isn't very funny. It's fairly good by the standard of 1960s sitcoms.
All places for your kite to land.
Keep going. Don't be chicken.
I don't think this branch is going to hold.
Think positive, Wilbur. Is my kite all right?
So that's just TV wasn't very funny in general. I'd certainly rather watch The Addams Family than Leave It to Beaver or something like that. But there is an undeniable charm to it, I think.
I think that comes down to the acting, or the actors, and how much character they bring to it. Because, like you say, this is from a source material where they don't have a lot of kind of live, living character.
Yeah.
They kind of had to make it their own, I think.
Oh, completely. And they really did. They really did bring so much to it. And This is something that really bugs me about the the 90s Addams Family movies, is that certainly among people my age, Raul Julia and Angelica, I said that really weirdly, Angelica Houston are both kind of revered as, oh, amazing, they're so wonderful. And it's like, no, fuck them. John Astin is Gomez. Caroline Jones is Morticia. Jackie Coogan is Uncle Fester. Like, these are not only, like, they're just definitive. And the thing is, John Astin is very different to Raul Julia. It's to give Raul some credit, you know, he made the role his own.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into the film in a little bit, but yeah, I do think they weren't too prescribed by that original. Like, they were happy to kind of divert somewhat.
Yeah, oh, completely. If you're not familiar with John Astin, he's such a fast-talking guy. He's such a kind of, hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm John Astin. I got loads of charm, and I'm here to talk. You know, he's a real, with a cigar, very, like, there's a Groucho Marx quality to him when he's smoking his cigars in this. And I love him. I love him as an actor. I think he's wonderful. I think it's a real shame that there isn't more of his stuff that's really stood the test of time. I can't think of many other roles of his. Have you seen him in anything else?
Yeah, one or two things, but yeah, not.
I've seen a TV movie that a friend of mine loved called Evil Roy Slade, where he plays a kind of, you know, Billy the Kid kind of renegade guy.
Take a card.
No, I got a perfect game.
Take a card.
Shouldn't have taken one.
How about you?
I'll take 3.
I'm gonna take 2 cards. I'm gonna take another one. One more. That's good. I'm gonna bet $100.
I'm in.
Everybody's in. Put it all in. Everything. What do you got?
Nothing.
How about you?
I got kings with an ace.
I got 3s with a gun.
Oh, you win. Hey, he's lucky. He's lucky. Slade, you're lucky.
I don't want to play anymore.
He plays Judge in The Frighteners as an old man. And I think that was very much like, let's get this old horror icon in our film. And I mean, that was
25 years ago?
Yeah. So
he's very old now.
It's remarkable that he's still going. He's one of the only surviving cast members. And of course, in my childhood, I best knew him. I didn't realise it was him till later, but I best knew him as the voice of Bull Gator in the Tasmania TV series that I so loved.
Oh, really? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
You'll have to drop in a clip because I wouldn't remember that.
And then you can make all kinds of money and maybe even a movie, huh? And you could live in a big igloo and we could come and visit, couldn't we, Burl?
Axel, you said something stupid. So you know what time it is now, don't you?
Yeah, 17 and a half minutes after 3.
Oh! Now you know why that had to happen, don't you?
'Cause we're not gonna go visit him.
That's right.
No matter how much money he makes.
But no, I love John Astin, I really do. And to me, he is Gomez. He is the definitive Gomez. Everything else that's come since has been a kind of weird corruption of that. And the same's true of Caroline Jones, I think. I don't think she brings as much unique personality necessarily to the role. What she's doing, slightly more generic gothy woman, but there's still so much charm.
Yeah, so like, how does this relate to who's the famous woman who just did that as her entire career?
Oh, Vampira.
Vampira. That must be later, right? But it's a classic kind of vamp look on John Astin. Like the kind of mania that he brings to it is definitely what you get from Raul Julia, even if it's a different kind of characterization. It's that really, fast talking kind of energetic character.
Yeah,
is there.
But it's beyond, you know, not just the cast. Not to move on past them. Jackie Coogan is a good Uncle Fester as well. He might be best known to cinephiles as the little boy from Charlie Chaplin's The Kid.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah. Even Ted Cassidy as Lurch, he's indistinguishable from the guy who plays Lurch in the later films. But he originated that. That was him. Do you know what I mean? That was... the later stuff is just replicating him rather than them all going off some amazingly concise source material. Thing was credited as itself in the old sitcom, so they started all of that. But there's just so much charm and playfulness. John Astin's pockets were lined with asbestos because he had a habit of just putting lit cigars in them, like when he was smoking and in character. Classic 1960s stuff. Have you ever seen photos of the set, by the way, Alan, in colour?
No.
Just Google it now, like Addams Family house colour, because it's remarkable just to see how black and white stuff photographs differently to. The house was incredibly bright and colourful, but they shot it in black and white, so you'd never know.
But that's the beauty of black and white filming. They knew what they were doing. They knew how it transposed as black and white film.
That's it.
So.
It's all like yellows and pinks and things that are,
gives you good contrast. Doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's something I have to say. I think the fact that the original show's in black and white brings a huge amount of aesthetic and vibe to it that's lost, sadly, in the kind of Barry Sonnenfeld trying to be Tim Burton aesthetic we get in the films later on.
I think that if we're going to get to the films, I quite like the visual aesthetic of it. I think
they do very well.
It creates a very monochrome kind of feel to it in many ways.
I know. I just prefer it in black and white. But no, I mean they do about as well as they could have done doing it in color. Gomez and Morticia are an incredibly aspirational couple. I think the Addams Family, one of the main reasons that it has so much charm is that they are a truly very loving family. You would most likely think, a layman would most likely think, looking in, oh, they're all spooky and kooky, therefore they'll all be sociopaths who, are mean to each other and blah, 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 blah. But Gomez and Morticia are incredibly loving.
I think that's the central tenet of the whole thing, that they're kind of weird and kooky, but there's they're a real strong family, and they love each other, and they do anything for each other, and they play that off against the kind of classic. This will be in the third film, particularly. I'll get there later, but the kind of and in the second film, but that kind of perfect suburbia, but actually underneath it looks perfect, but underneath it's terrible. Whereas this is like, it looks, oh my god, this is terrible, but they're really happy underneath.
Completely.
I think that's kind of really the central concept of the whole thing.
Yeah. And off the back of that, Gomez and Morticia are largely considered to be the first married couple on US TV that had an implicit sex life. That weren't routinely seen with separate beds and that sort of thing. I think there are a couple of points you could use to dispute that, but much as Captain Kirk and Uhura is largely considered to be the first interracial kiss on US TV, Gomez and Morticia are largely considered to be the first sexual couple. And for 1960s TV, it is quite full on. The jokes of the film are just lifted from this, not the light BDSM references, but the her saying various words in French or boubula and things like that, and him going, yeah, him going, Morticia, that's French. You know what that does to me, and then like kissing her up and down, and it's You know what else, Alan? What? The Addams Family were the first TV family to own a computer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What sort of computer is it?
I can't quite remember the episode, but I think it's a big fuck off, massive computer that they were fucking rich. They had loads of money.
Isn't he a lawyer in the series? Is that right?
In the TV show, he's a lawyer, but he owns a great deal of stock, which I think is, and it's implicit he's inherited some money as well. But yeah, he's a lawyer. He's more of a working man than he is in the films that ditch that. Another major change they make is that Uncle Fester is Morticia's uncle in the TV show.
Yeah.
It's that classic thing of having an elderly relative who just sort of lives with you for some reason. Yeah. But then they just made him Gomez's brother in the first film. Do you want to rate the show out of 10? To give us.
I only watched a few episodes. I would, I don't know. I would put it a sort of a flat 5. Really, I wouldn't care to watch anymore.
I'd give it a 7, but that's a very generous score, taking into account the time in which it stemmed from and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So after that show, there was, I think we've mentioned on the podcast in passing before, the new Scooby-Doo movies, which was the second Scooby-Doo TV show, I believe, the follow-up to Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, in which every episode was a TV hour and featured some sort of crossover element. And there was an episode called Wednesday is Missing, where the Addams Family appeared, voiced predominantly by the TV series cast, certainly John Astin and Carolyn Jones, but drawn to look like Charles Addams' original designs, which is a bit jarring. And that, I don't know for sure. This was in 1972, this aired. I think it was intended as a sort of backdoor pilot for Hanna-Barbera's 1973 Addams Family cartoon that shortly followed. I think they were testing the water to see how well the characters would go down with people. Then there was a Hanna-Barbera Addams Family cartoon, which didn't keep the same cast, but did keep those exact same designs and drawings, that ran for a season in 1973. Gomez is completely different. He has a kind of weird, like almost hello like voice.
Peter Lorre.
Yeah.
Oh, can you forgive me, Carita? I thought you were in the arms of a strange man.
Gomez, you know you're the only strange man for me.
You two again. You'll pay dearly for this.
Oh, I already did, my good man. $1,000.
Really, darling, we ought to be getting back to the children.
You're right, Carita. Lurch, oh Lurch, yoo-hoo.
Apparently there was a pilot for a musical variety show in 1973 that had almost an entirely new cast, but Felix Siller reprised the role of Cousin It, but it was just a musical variety hour thing. And weirdly enough, Butch Patrick played Pugsley. Do you know who that is, Alan? Butch Patrick?
Yeah, from the Munsters.
Eddie Munster, yeah. Very odd. The Hanna-Barbera cartoon series was pretty good by Hanna-Barbera cartoon standards at the time as well. Not amazing, but nice sort of way of keeping the characters alive. For the hell of it, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 as well. They did do a TV movie that I've skipped past.
Oh, that must be what I'm thinking of then.
Yeah, there was something called Halloween with the new Addams Family in 1977, which was again, I'm not sure if it was intended as a sort of way to test the water for a revival of the show, or if it was just a TV nostalgic. Let's bring them back for a TV special, but it's the original cast for the most part. John Astin plays Gomez again. Carolyn Jones plays Morticia. Jackie Coogan's Uncle Fester. It's just the kids who've grown up who've been replaced, basically. So that's a first look at the Addams Family in colour, but it's quite sad, really. They're all looking very long in the tooth, and it's all just a bit tragic, really. So I wouldn't really recommend it unless you're doing some weird retrospective like I did at one point. And it's basically just about them celebrating Halloween one year. There's not a lot to it. I gave it a 5 out of 10.
So we skip forward. 1991. Mm-hmm. Tim Burton's not available, so they call Barry Sonnenfeld, who is a cinematographer who has never directed a film.
That's not flippant, by the way. Like they were literally trying to get Tim Burton to
he was doing his Batman films, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Certainly now, I don't know about 1990, but certainly now Tim Burton, as you would imagine, Tim Burton is the obvious choice for something like this. And I think back then, after he's done Beetlejuice, that would make sense as well.
Well, he was still the obvious choice even after they made these films. There was a long gestating Tim Burton stop-start animated Addams Family film that never got made as well, that was supposed to follow these up.
Yeah, Barry Sonnenfeld is drafted in. He's a cinematographer, but a cinematographer of some repute. He's certainly
shot some of the very best porn films in Hollywood.
Yeah, so after that, he did mainstream films. Such Misery he did, didn't he? Or was that
him?
That was one of the last ones he did, I think, before. I think so. But he worked with the Coen brothers a couple of times.
Yeah. Well,
in their early days.
Started off, like, that's how he got into mainstream Hollywood, I think, isn't it?
Is it?
He came up with those guys and Sam Raimi and was part of that crew. All I know is he was the DOP on Blood Simple, which was the...
Oh, well, if he was that early on, then he must have come up with them, So, let's deal with that first then, because it does feel a little bit knockoff Tim Burton. Compared to something else we watched recently, the Men in Black films, there's an obvious connection. Like, you can see the same sort of style.
He uses the same font, pretty much.
Yes, that's true. Yes, he did. So I think there's definitely there's something of the Sonnenfeld in there, I suppose. But we also discussed when we dealt with Men in Black that his career never quite materialised in this way that it was expected, did it? And,
well, he had a very promising start. You know, he began it with the Addams Family. Shortly after did Addams Family Values, Get Shorty, Men in Black. I haven't seen The Concierge, but that's a very strong run of 5 films to get started, you know? And not just sort of like artistically valid films, but like things with mainstream appeal that made a lot of money for people. So that's it. Men in Black was a huge hit and brilliant. And Get Shorty is very well respected in a more kind of legitimate film sense. And I think Wild Wild West seemingly killed his entire career.
I know he had a failure, but is that one film will do it?
Well, I don't know. It looks like it. He followed Men in Black up with Wild Wild West, and it was just... He never seemed to get it back after that.
As far as I understand, the Addams Family made a shit ton more money than anyone expected as well.
Oh, yeah, completely.
And they did have trouble with it at the beginning, though, because it went over budget and they were having problems or something like that. But it all kind of paid off in the end. But they got a sequel. But let's talk about the film itself a little bit. We've got... So, yeah, who's in the cast? Raul Julia as Gomez.
Yep.
Who's a kind of... like John Astin, but a little bit more Hispanic.
The Fester Addams Offshore Retirement Fund? What would it do?
What wouldn't it do?
Fester, all tribute to thee. Some called him inhumanly evil.
No.
Only our parents.
Yeah, because he's called Gomez, I guess they decided, that means he's Hispanic now. Raul Julia.
Who I know from this and Street Fighter.
I've never even seen Street Fighter, but I know of him in it. I know he's, him and his bulging eyes is quite a popular thing. I mean, he's a very beloved actor, isn't he? People love him. And I don't know if there's a touch of the Heath Ledger about it, where they kind of turned in one performance that meant a lot to people and then died.
Well, I understand Raul Julia was a pretty well-respected stage actor, which obviously does not stand the test of time in terms of legacy quite in the same way as film. But I suspect for most people, he is Gomez Addams and wouldn't know him from much else. In terms of like certainly mainstream, kind of straightforward.
But I think to a lot of people, he is the definitive Gomez Addams. And that's... That annoys me. And it's weird because I should be embracing the Raul Julia, the Hispanic.
Your namesake.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is, Alan, if you dress up as Gomez Addams for Halloween, you're a dick. And the same goes for Morticia and Wednesday. So...
Why? Because it's too easy.
Yeah. So I'm not going to... If it was more obscure and out there, I'd be all over it. I'd be like, this is my guy. He's made it more on brand for me. Brilliant. No.
Now, as Morticia Addams, we've got Angelica Houston. Someone who I've never particularly liked as an actor.
Yeah.
Not that she's a bad actor, particularly. I just never liked her in anything. She's
just there.
I've never seen her do a standout performance.
Again, I think a lot of people love her predominantly based off of these films, but to me she's a really pale imitation of Carolyn Jones. I don't even think she brings any of herself to the role in the way that Raul Julia does. So to me it is just a bad not a bad impression, but just a very plain, uninteresting impression of something that wasn't all that remarkable and unique to begin with. But yeah, I agree. I've seen her pop up in stuff. I've never thought, wow, she's good. I have never seen that Mrs. Brown's Boys movie that they made before Mrs. Brown's Boys, where she plays Mrs. Brown. So maybe that'll be the one to convert me.
It is interesting that she played that. She's very mannish, isn't she?
Square jaw.
Yeah, Angelica Houston, nothing special, but I think gets the job done. You know, they put a light on her eyes in this kind of 1925 film style kind of thing, which is they really pick out the lighting on her eyes, which I think works. I don't think it's surprising with a director that's a former cinematographer to get kind of very visual style stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it does work. As Fester, or kind of becomes Fester as we go along. Christopher Lloyd. Now, this is an interesting one because it is a very different take on the Fester character.
Well, this is just like people looked at pictures of Uncle Fester and went, oh, he looks like he'd be a bit weird, like Christopher Lloyd, and never actually watched the show. Because, it's nothing like he is in the old TV series. In the old TV series, he's quite warm and friendly. He comes across quite not very scary. He looks a bit weird, but his voice is very high pitched, and he's kind of up here. Hey guys, it's me, Uncle Fester.
No, there's only one way to settle this.
Uncle Fester, please, not that.
But Morticia, the family honor.
He's right, Morticia. The family honor. You'll have to challenge Pomeroy to a duel.
No, I'd rather shoot him in the back.
Uncle Fester, that is not the honorable way.
I know, but it's the safe way.
Uncle Fester, I'm ashamed of you. And Addams doesn't know the meaning of the word fear.
I do. I'll shoot him in the back.
Uncle Fester, remember the Addams name.
It'll have to be a duel.
With swords?
With victory going to the swiftest, the cunningest, the deadliest.
I'll shoot him in the back.
Wait.
And then, you get Christopher Lloyd with the sunken eye makeup on and have him being really, I'm Christopher Lloyd, being in scary mode. It's very different.
Haven't you ever slaughtered anyone?
He's only a child.
No excuse. Aim for a major artery. That juggler.
I'm not stuck to the original, so this is kind of my definitive Addams Family, and I think it works. I think Christopher Lloyd just brings a lot of energy to it. He's really going for it.
Yeah,
and in making him Gomez's brother, I think that makes sense as well because they are a bit more similar. They're very kind of manic energy, whereas I think,
well, they are in this, but that's only because they've changed the character.
We have the other sort of major notable character in the family is Christina Ricci, a very young Christina Ricci as Wednesday Addams.
Yes.
It becomes very clear as we'll get to the second film, they realised what they had there and capitalised on that and really focused part of the plot around her.
Yeah.
But here in this first film, it's just a kid actor that they've hired in to play this character. But Wednesday is a very difficult character to play because it's so deadpan and kind of unemotional character. And in this first film, they don't make too much of it, but in the second film we'll get onto that. I think it takes a lot of skill to play that and do it well and still have the comic timing and still get a bit of emotional resonance out of it when it's such a flat character, deliberately so.
I don't think there's anything particularly remarkable about her in this first film, but you're right, the second one gives her a bit of stuff to do that shows that she's capable, and I'm a big fan of Christina Ricci. I think she's a good actor. Now she's an adult. I've seen her in some very good stuff. So it's it really was her career maker. Certainly as a child star. I mean, fucking hell, what's he called? Pugsley. He
who are you?
He didn't make the same impression on us, did he?
The one playing the granny in this first film, I prefer Carol Kane in the second one, even though she's not in it very much. So I do think, though, that the casting really does make the film. The energy that comes to it, Raul Julia, Christopher Lloyd specifically, is the heart of it. And I think Angelica Houston gets the job done. Like, I don't think she stands out, but she does what needs to be done there.
Yeah.
And then the side characters that come in, who's playing Fester's mother or adopted mother or whatever, is Elizabeth Wilson, who I don't know. I don't know if I've seen anything else, but
I've seen her in things, I think, but I certainly can't recall who Mrs. Braddock from The Graduate is.
Yeah, but it seems odd casting because this is a big kind of comedy role. She plays this scheming gangster kind of character, and then this fake, like Freudian doctor character, and it feels like that's a big comedy role that you give to a really safe pair of hands, but. I don't know who this is. Not that she does a bad job at it, particularly, but I just feel like there was probably more to milk out of it.
Yeah.
I suspect if you're looking for an older woman in early 90s who can really handle some comedy, what are the options? I suspect it's just not it's not something that's been cultivated.
Yeah.
So it's not something that was easily available. It's one of those roles where you think this is a standout role, but it doesn't stand out, I guess is my point. And you don't remember that character really where you do remember Christopher Lloyd or
no, I agree.
And so the central story is that Dan Hedaya, who is their family solicitor, I guess, and he's trying to scam them out of some money. He finds someone who looks like they're missing brother Fester, and they come up with this scam to try and pretend it is Fester, and then it ends up it is Fester at the end, but they don't quite commit to it in a really.
Who saw that coming, eh?
But they don't really commit to that ending in a satisfying way. It's really thrown away. I'm not quite sure why that is. It feels like, was that a last minute change or something?
I think this film's problem really is that. Arguably its strength, arguably what it was trying to do, but I think it's a problem with the film. It just feels like a load of meandering 1960s sitcom nonsense. The plot's never really very solidified. The stakes are never really all that high.
Yeah.
It kind of just feels like you're watching a big budget episode of the 1960s TV show. And the same's true of the jokes, really. It is just the same jokes they were doing in the 60s. I mean, literally some of them, the Dan Hedaya stepping on the polar bear skin rug and then it comes to life and bites him on the leg. That was a running gag, I think, that the old TV show had.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I was stuck in the Bermuda Triangle and oh, we love the Bermuda Triangle. We went there on our second honeymoon and all that. That's, that is just, it's the same exact shit they were doing in the 60s, and it wasn't particularly funny then. So, I don't know. It's falling back on franchise charm to carry it.
If it's not relying on franchise charm. It's using those ingredients that are already there.
Well, I think people our age who were kids when this came out and who fondly remember it don't. Yeah, I think the adults at the time were familiar with it. I think it was coasting on nostalgia. I think that's going back to what I said about Scott Rudin deciding he wanted to make it. I think it was very much, there's enough of a nostalgic memory for this property. Let's cash in on it. And so I think the film is relying on charm, and it gets away with it. As long as you don't compare it too closely to the old TV show, it has got a lot of charm.
Well, I think you are bringing your love of the old TV show to bear on this, because I found it very watchable. I found it very entertaining, and I think it's actually really good. And I really like the look of it. Yes, it's a Tim Burton knockoff, but it works really nicely.
I think the pacing has a lot of issues in the third act, particularly when we get to the big family party. It really stops dead. Oh, but because it's the Addams Family, that means it's good, doesn't it, Alan? Stopping dead. That's what you want it to do.
Stop dead.
Have you ever seen the 90s cartoon?
No.
It's not particularly good. It's just very standard 90s Saturday morning cartoon. But the character designs are interesting because they're largely just taking off the old Charles Addams drawings, with the one exception being Gomez, who is now much taller and looks a lot more like, I suppose, more like John Astin. who voiced the guy. So they probably just thought, oh, it's going to be weird if we make him like this little short, fat man who he used to be. He used to look a lot more like Fester's brother, frankly. It's weird that he wasn't.
So, just one more thing to talk about the first film. Thing?
Yeah. I'm always struck by how bad the effects are on Thing. And I don't know if that's just that I kind of thought we'd moved beyond this level by 1991 and we hadn't, or what. But
well, I think, it's 1991, isn't it? Well, I don't know. How much can you expect?
You know, they do a perfectly fine job of removing the arm with CGI, although I will say in the old TV show, Thing had an arm. He just, he'd appear out of boxes and things and reach out at them. But there's no weight to it. The way he walks and everything. I think it's this film, it might be the second one, when he's like jumping from stepping stone to stepping stone, and he's just kind of floating in the air. It's just, I don't think it's a special effects issue so much as a
puppeteering issue.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't think it's done very well.
I looked up the guy who plays him because I was expecting to be a puppeteer or something like that, and he's, as far as I can tell, he's a magician.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just like, they thought, oh yeah, he's good. He moves his hands.
Good with his hands. Yeah.
Manipulates stuff with his hands. So I think that's the concept. He's not really done much else.
Interestingly, I've just looked him up on IMDb, and the top credit, the best known thing he's got is something called Idle Hands.
Yeah, exactly.
In which he plays the hand.
Well, there you go then. Is that before or after Addams Family?
That is after the Addams Family. Obviously on the back of it. He is also in an episode of Angel as the Hands. So, I mean, he's made a career out of it, it looks like.
He hasn't got particularly interesting hands, though.
I know. Well, yeah, very weird. I don't have much else to say, really. I think it has that franchise charm, and it sustains it. It brings enough new energy to it. It's charming. I think it's meandering and messy and not particularly funny, but funny enough for the charm to just work. It's fine. It's there. I'm giving it an incredibly generous 7 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. But I really did genuinely enjoy it, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, but the sort of fond memories I had were definitely founded. I gave it a kind of hearty, generous 8.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think there is something, I've talked about this before. There's a certain sort of period of the 90s where I have that nostalgia element, I think. It's kind of, there is something that hits for me.
Yeah.
But I will say, though, I think before I just rewatch these, if you asked me to sort of talk about the Addams Family films, what I would be describing, what I'd be talking about is Addams Family Values.
Yeah, Addams Family Values is generally regarded as the superior film.
Mm-hmm.
Critically, it has a higher rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Big fans of this series certainly seem to point to this one as the one they like. To be honest, I think what it is that a lot of people our age and below, particularly women, maybe saw Wednesday Addams as something of an icon in childhood.
Icon.
Oh, I can be like that, can I? And this is the Wednesday Addams movie.
Yes.
So I think that's what it comes down to.
Funny you should mention that, because I distinctly remember seeing this film when I was like 12, maybe 13, maybe, I don't know. But seeing it on TV when it was first out. And like Christina Ricci was like, ooh, my kind of crush as a 12-year-old. Now, she is obviously a child in this, but so was I, so I think that's okay. But this is, a long-standing love for Christina Ricci began with Addams Family Values, so it has that nostalgia element in my life.
I had that based on the exploitative Black Snake Moan posters when I was 18.
It's a very different Christina Ricci. Yeah. But I would agree that this is the Wednesday Addams film. However, it seems the filmmakers weren't that confident on it, because there is an entire secondary plot that goes alongside, and that is the main problem with this film.
Well,
there are two completely separate plots that never really come together.
Yeah. Well, the Christina Ricci one is very much a subplot.
Yeah, I think it is presented as such, yes. and they're not connected. They're not really connected on even any kind of allegorical level, like just that they're telling the same thing about family or whatever. Also, the other problem element with the script, in terms of it just feels like a weakly written script, is that the whole baby thing kind of is the first act, and then it's like, oh yeah, there's a baby.
The first film, the main problem is that it doesn't transcend its sitcom roots. It just feels like a meandering, extended sitcom plot. So the fact that in the second film they went straight into the cliche what you do to a 1960s sitcom when it's running out of steam, the characters have a baby, it's just not interesting. It's awful. We don't want another Addams character that's a baby. It's boring. No one wants to see that, and it doesn't add anything to the film. All it does is serves as a catalyst to get Wednesday and Pugsley off to summer camp. But you could have done that anyway.
Any number of ways. Yeah, you could have hired a nanny to look after them, and then the nanny's after Fester, and then at the end the baby is kind of central to how it's all stopped. But again, it all just by not necessary. It was just by kind of right. We better do something with this baby then. But they built so much of the beginning of the film around him that it feels very weird that it just gets forgotten about. And then you break up into two stories.
Yeah, but it's because there seems to be this weird misconception amongst people that people care about baby characters being added to stuff. And maybe I'm just completely out of touch. Maybe people do, but I don't know. I remember when Dennis the Menace had a sibling when his parents had a baby in the Beano, and it was this huge ongoing arc, and they were like, oh my god, they're adding a new character. Arr! And then it was the shittest character, this baby character. They did it on Fairly Odd Parents. They did it. They keep adding Baby Mario and Baby Luigi to every Mario game, and everyone hates them. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the little girls playing these games like playing as Baby Mario. I don't know, but I don't get the impression that any of these characters ever end up being popular. I mean, honestly, I think Scrappy Doo is the most popular version that fits into this sort of category of let's add a young baby character in. And if you're gonna do that as the plot, can't we get some, surely the run-up to that's more interesting. Surely... Oh, but hang on, they have the baby at the very end of the first one, do they? Or have I just...
No. She announces that she's pregnant. That's all, yeah.
Surely the interesting plot is her pregnancy and do something with that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't fucking know. Maybe they felt like they'd written themselves into a corner because she announces the pregnancy at the end of the first one,
it's just weak writing. The two stories that they get that is bad anyway because we've got two separate stories. Neither of them have anything to do with the baby as a coherent story, as a narrative point. Yeah. So it's just weak. It's just weak writing, and that is unfortunate because again, as in the first film, I really enjoyed this. I found it very entertaining. There was definite nostalgia from when I watched it as a kid. And the characters are all still there, it still works. Yeah. And Joan Cusack comes in as the kind of principal antagonist, and she's seducing all kinds of that character could be, I don't know, it's just a very one-dimensional character.
Yeah.
It's not great. But I do think that when I think of Addams Family, I think of Wednesday Addams at summer camp. And that, I think, is a really great thing to do, taking the Addams Family away from the home and putting them into the normal world. And then that clash, I think, is a really good idea.
I agree, except I don't think it's very cinematic. I think that is a sitcom episode. That's not a film.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why they had to have a separate story going on.
Yeah. There's still lots and lots of little references and what have you, playing off nostalgia for the old TV show if you're aware of it. There's the bit with the light bulb with Fester putting the light bulb in his mouth. That was something Jackie Coogan used to do in almost every episode. They were obsessed with the fact that they obviously had this trick light bulb that lit up that he could put in his mouth. So they make a gag out of that when she tries to electrocute him in the bath. And
But that's the other thing as well, that they essentially make Fester immortal.
Well, yeah, film. But that's pretty much from the original 1960s TV show. Like, the running gag was he was just constantly trying to kill himself. Not trying to kill himself, but,
just getting himself
doing things, electrocuting himself, and much like Pugsley in the first film, where Wednesday keeps like trying to kill him. They did a lot of that sort of stuff with Fester in the old TV show.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing about this second film. They may as well have not put Pugsley in it. They're just not going to bother with him. They couldn't have given less of a shit about him. And I think the real high points of the film are those the two the two camp leaders.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Christine Baranski and Peter McNichol.
Yeah. Peter McNichol was like 90s, the sort of films you have nostalgia for, royalty. I don't know quite how to put it, but he was just...
Ghostbusters 2 and Mr. Bean.
Yeah. Dracula Dead and Loving It. He was in all this shit in the... He had a real moment in the 90s. He was a big deal. He was in everything. And then he just kind of fucked off. Popped up again years later in Veep.
I could elect anyone in New Hampshire. I could elect a Muslim AIDS virus.
Okay, Jeff.
A terrorist fucking AIDS virus in the tiniest suicide vest ever made. I could make it governor of New Hampshire.
Okay, Jeff, you're drunk.
And Christine Baranski, who not hot yet.
Oh, is it not working for you here?
No, not at all.
Because she hasn't got the nose job done yet.
Yeah, it's weird, that, isn't
it? Yes, but I think that the energy they bring, that kind of very kind of over the top, hey, we're happy camp counselor people, it works. It's just the right level of comedy.
Yeah.
It's obviously set up to play off of Wednesday. The fact that every other kid there is blonde and like this kind of perfect Americana vision is nice. I think it's kind of it takes everything right onto the nose without losing it. I think it all works. I think all the camp stuff works really nicely. They have a nice big ending to it as well with the play.
I kind of agree. I still think the comedy they're working at in this film it's still quite weak. It's still like 1960s. Oh, this soup's cold. How delicious. It's still that level of like doing a joke. But there is more of an attempt at writing legitimate gags in this one.
Yeah.
So you do have a few, lines that are really playing off Wednesday, like the, what if this guy was completely devoted to you, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'd pity him, and little gags like that. And again, I still don't find those hugely funny, but they're fine. I think this is much like the first film for me, honestly. I think it's kind of just, it gets by on charm.
Well, that's it. I think you're right. I think there's just a real charm to it that papers over a lot of cracks. And I agree that I would put this one in a very similar stable as the first one. I think this one has found its place a little bit more, has found the characters a little bit more settled. But I also think the story structure is quite poor, just from a filmic point of view. But they work. The elements work. It's just they don't come together. So that's kind of a bad point. But I do enjoy the individual pieces.
Yeah, I'm similar. On a side note, Nathan Lane has a cameo in this as a policeman.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah.
And that's notable because do you know, Alan, that he would later go on to play Gomez Addams himself?
Yeah, in some sort of musical.
When you're in Addams, you need to have a little moonlight. When you're in Addams, you need to feel a little chill. You have to see the world in shades of grey. You have to put some poison in your day.
That's the way
when you're in Addams.
Yeah, the Addams Family Broadway musical. Don't think it lasted very long. I don't think it appears to be particularly good. But yeah, there was an Addams Family Broadway musical in 2009, and Nathan Lane was Gomez. So there you go.
Well, you're a big fan.
Yeah, I do. I love Nathan Lane. It's nice when he appears. I like it when he has a little tiny cameo out of the blue as, I'm an exasperated policeman. Gee. He's good at that.
Okay, so
What a mook. We didn't really touch on it in the first film, but I can't not bring it up here.
Is it the music?
Yeah, the
over
music.
The end credits?
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about the music in the series, a very iconic theme tune, which I think has probably lasted the test of time more than the show has.
They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky. They're all together ooky, the Addams Family. Their house is a museum. When people come to see them, they really are a scream, the Addams Family.
It's very weird, that theme tune, because it's very catchy and iconic. It's also, like, not actually very good. It's really grating and annoying. And it's weird, because, like, the elements are there to make something really cool. Like, when The Simpsons incorporated it into their end credits theme for a Halloween special once, it's brilliant. It sounds so cool, because Alf Clausen is a wonderful musician. You know, I think maybe this new animated film, I think there's the potential there to kind of remix it, play with it, and turn it into something really cool. But
which I was surprised they didn't do much with it in these films.
Yeah,
you definitely hear a little refrain here and there, but they don't embrace it, and they don't kind of go with a full-on remix kind of thing either.
Well, I think it's because I think they don't because it's actually quite a shit song. I think that's basically what it is. I don't think they had faith in themselves to turn it into something good. Because it is that real 1960s, we're singing a song about the characters in the show, la 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 la. You know, it's and then compare and contrast the Munsters theme tune. That is a theme tune. Got that like 1960s surfer rock vibe. Have you ever heard Whatever Happened to Eddie, the Butch Patrick single, trying to capitalise on his fame later in life?
No, I don't think I have.
It's one of the worst songs I've ever heard in my entire life. It's the Munsters theme tune with him going,
Whatever happened to Eddie?
I'm the kid from Mockingbird Lane.
Whatever happened to Eddie?
Did I freak or go insane? You might wonder why I have a dragon for a pet. Well, he's just there to keep me company on the set.
Whatever happened to Eddie?
I'm the kid with mixed up brain.
awful. But yeah, I had to bring up Woomph, Addams Family, there it is.
Kick it.
Oh yeah, party time with the Addams Family. With a little help from DC, the brain supreme, and my man Steve Bowden, tag team. Addams Family is the Addams Family. Come on.
So this is on the second film, because the first film has a crap song over the credits as well.
Yeah, but it's not as egregious as a
Addams Family, new baby in the house makes 3. Wednesday Pugsley alert you ring. Festa grandmama and thing. Wait, can't forget cousin it. Tag team rips another party hit. It's the Addams Family movie theme. Gomez Morticia, come on, sing.
Well, there was Woomph, there it is. There was a big hit around this time, wasn't it?
Woomph, there it is.
By Tag Team. So instead of coming up with a new original song, they just got Tag Team to re-record it as Woomph, Addams Family, there it is. Which is just the exact same song, but they say Addams Family repeatedly in it. So Addams Family values.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna be somewhat at ends to you with this, Alan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is pretty much on par with the first film. like you say, it feels more comfortable. The characters have certainly settled into a groove, but it's also messier. And the first film wasn't exactly an incredibly tightly knit screenplay to begin with. But it really is just doing more of the same. And the first film had an element of novelty to it, because it's like the first time we've seen these characters in a film.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone here. Therefore, whereas the first one was teetering on being a 6 out of 10 for me, I have just knocked this one down to a 6. I just got bored, honestly. It's that whole A plot with the baby and the nanny is so dull.
I definitely have problems with the structure of the film as a whole, but if I was going to watch either one of them again, this would be the one I'd watch. And so I think I would just prefer it over the first one. But very similar, and I've given it an 8 again.
So, will this positivity continue into Addams Family Reunion? The 1998 straight-to-video follow-up. Do you know anything about this? Because did the second film not make very much money or something? It seems odd to me that they didn't just churn out another one off the bat.
Well, Raul Julia was ill and then died fairly quickly. Because I think he was already ill when he was making this film. Definitely was sick by the time he was making Street Fighter. So I think that was part of it.
Cast here, he is replaced by wonderful casting, Tim Curry, who, as an actor, I would say has the potential to be the best Gomez of the lot. But something happened here. I don't know what. And it's embarrassing. What the fuck is going on with him in this film?
Wednesday. Pugsley, how many times have I asked you not to play with the mailman while he's working?
The important thing to note about Addams Family Reunion, it was a pilot for TV series.
Oh, was it?
Which was made. They made the TV series.
Yeah, the new Addams Family.
Yeah. But this was kind of their way of...
Tim Curry's not in the show, though, we should add. In fact, none of... Yeah, Daryl Hannah as well, isn't...
The girl who played Wednesday is in the show. She's the only one. But it was very much like, we're making a children's show aimed at children. And it is that... with such a different demographic, they've made a very different film. Yeah. But even with that in mind, it's an awful film. It's a really terrible piece of work. And you can tell there's obviously not much budget, and
exactly. It's all of the problems that existed with these films, and it hasn't got any money, and the cast are being directed to be as shit as they possibly can.
No charm.
And the charm is gone, and there's an air of tragedy about the whole thing. It just feels like a cheap, crass knockoff made with no love or care.
Which is what it is.
Yeah, and it's a shame though, because Tim Curry and Daryl Hannah, like I say, you know they could both...
Well...
Under the right guy.
I would definitely put Daryl Hannah into the Angelica Houston, I've never seen her do anything special category. Frankly, I'm not a big fan. I don't think... But she doesn't do much here. Tim Curry can be very big and charismatic. I don't know if I would ever expect particularly great acting from him. I think he's probably the best thing in the film.
It's bad though. It's like they're reining him in. It's like they're trying to put him into...
It feels like he's doing his best under the circumstances, and he's the best thing in it. And I can't overstate how bad this film is. It's probably one of the worst films I've ever seen. It's aiming for a kind of Ernest meets the Addams Family level of filmmaking and doesn't reach it. You know, it doesn't have the... But it's that level of kind of budget and obviously thrown together, let's just do some physical gags, but it hasn't got any charm. It hasn't got Jim Varney selling it. It's just bad on every level. And it's really... The story doesn't really, add up to much. It's really weak, and there's some crap CGI in it as well, just to make sure it dates it.
Atrocious. Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen any of the new Addams Family that apparently was spawned by it. Have you?
No, I couldn't bring myself to watch it.
It's every bit as bad.
Yeah, I imagine.
But with a cast of nobodies.
I'll tell you who is in it. Clint Howard pops up, so you know it's going to be good. Because there's a character. Uncle Fester trains a dog to eat hair for whatever reason, and so Clint Howard. Bear that in mind. The dog eats hair. Clint Howard turns up as a dog catcher with a lovely head of hair. Now, can you imagine what's going to happen there, Sol?
I think that he's going to look after the dog, and they're going to have a nice time with nothing out of the ordinary, no major conflict.
They don't even sell it well. Like, if you're going to get a bald bloke and then put a wig on him so the dog can eat his hair, but they don't even have a good moment of it ripping off his head or anything. They don't even have a moment where he kind of reaches up, feels his bare skin and looks into camera and goes, "Bah!" Like, they don't sell it at all. It's so weak. You know, you were saying how, the sort of the obvious gag is like, oh, you like something good, we like something bad.
Yeah.
It's at its worst here. I think they get away with it in the film.
Waiter, there's a fly in my soup. I ordered 3 flies.
No, the line that really jumped out to me is Gomez. He's talking to, I believe, is when the grandparents turn up. Oh, let's get you inside before you catch warm. That's the level this film is looking
bad. Oh, it's so easy. It's so fucking easy. That fly line I just came out with, Alan.
It's too good. It was a bit too good.
That's too good for this, isn't it?
Oh,
thinking too hard.
Yeah. I mean, what did you rate? Have you rated the film?
Yeah. I've seen this film twice now, Alan, and I couldn't bring myself to watch it a third time for this podcast.
Yeah.
I hope you can appreciate why now.
Yes.
So I gave it a 3 out of 10.
Oh, really? It's very generous.
Yeah. Which is the same score I gave to the TV series that followed as well, actually. I've seen a few episodes of that.
I give this a 1 out of 10. And it's definitely got to go onto my kind of top 10 worst films ever made list.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably fair. I think most of the points from me are just purely I like Tim Curry and, it's the Addams Family again. I like them for some reason. Yeah, so there was that revival series that was very short-lived and similarly shite. And then the Addams Family kind of died a death for 10 years, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. But that's good, Sol.
They've been trying to get an animated film off the ground for the better part of at least 10 of those 20 years. And Tim Burton was going to direct a stop-start animated version at one point. And it's finally made it through production. We're on the cusp of it coming out now. And it looks bad.
Well, I don't know much about this new film. Why don't you tell me all about it?
The visual look of the thing is disgusting.
I'm going to put the trailer on without any sound just so I can get a visual. Here we go.
They've gone back to the old Charles Addams designs, but it's in a kind of hideous modern CGI DreamWorks Illumination Entertainment sort of aesthetic, and it just looks disgusting. The CGI interpretation of Gomez looks kind of like Steve Pemberton. And that's just not what you want, is it? It's everything wrong with modern animation business practices on show. And sadly, the film just looks like, typical DreamWorks Illumination Entertainment disposable stuff. I'm sure it'll be about as good as Hotel Transylvania.
Which is odd because this is a something with lineage. It's like there's a lot to trade on here. Like, you think you'd do it right. Yeah. It's not just a throwaway thing, is it?
But that's it. It's like the recent Grinch movie. It just looks like they're not aiming high enough with it. If Tim Burton made this, I think they would have approached it as, how can we make this a big, meaningful film? And it just looks like they're approaching it as, how can we make a big Saturday morning cartoon in the cinema? And I'm sure it'll be watchable, but I'm not really very enthusiastic about the whole endeavour. But I don't think the Addams Family belong in cinemas, frankly. If we were to pitch our own Addams Family revival...
Oh, go on. Let's do it.
I think it's simple. You do a modern TV sitcom. Like, the 90s wasn't the time to do it because they were still in a 3-wall sitcom era. I think nowadays you go for like a high-end single camera setup. You get a good writer on. There's a lot you could do with that premise of these people are like, a bit spooky.
And kooky.
Yeah, but there's so much to mine there for a sitcom. There really is. There's not really an equivalent of, like, quirky, spooky family guy. And just give it to anyone who wants to do it. Just phone up round Hollywood. Tina Fey, do you like the Addams Family? Do you want to do it? All right, no. Dan Harmon, you interested? No. Just keep going till you find someone who's good. Won't take you long, I'm sure. Just give us a decent sitcom. Put it on Netflix. They'll buy any old shit.
Who would you want? What's your casting?
TV.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, TV. Stephen Merchant as Lurch.
Oh God.
Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais as Fester. Actually, Gervais as Gomez. Pilkington as Fester. Warwick Davis as Cousin It. Could Jason Bateman be Gomez?
The most boring Gomez ever.
He's the kind of guy they'd get if this was a live action movie being made 10 years ago. It'd be Jason Bateman and Jennifer Aniston as Gomez and Morticia. The worst Addams Family film. Okay, and I'm gonna... give me a sec. I'm gonna figure this out. Will Arnett as Uncle Fester. Boom. That's one of them.
Really?
Yeah, he's weird, right?
But you need someone a bit more round.
Okay. Well, yeah, but have you seen it? Did you not see season 5 of Arrested Development?
Is he blown up with it?
Alison Brie as Morticia.
Okay, yeah.
Alright, Alison Brie as Morticia, I like that. Ken Jeong as the annoyed neighbour. Gomez is the tough one. Can we get a Brit over who wants to break America?
Of course.
What's David Mitchell up to? Morticia?
Oh, carry me.
Oh, where's my yogurt? Morticia. No, he'd be the neighbour who moves in next door, who's like a normal... Jonathan Banks as Uncle Fester.
Who's that?
He's bald. Mike in Breaking Bad.
Stop just naming bald people. He's also way too old. Ross Kemp as Uncle Fester.
Hey, I know we can get in as Granny.
Yeah.
Carol Kane.
I'm happy with that. Yeah, I've got no problem with that. She's actually the right age now.
She's that exact level doing TV sitcoms, and she's the right age for it, and she's like, I'll let her have it. She, for me, is the definitive version of that role.
Yeah.
Okay, Carol Kane, done. Alison Brie, done. Two kids. We'll just find some kids.
Yeah, kids and
sorted.
Newcomers. Yeah.
Don't worry about them. Yeah.
One out of Stranger Things.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, Alan. You know who's playing Pugsley in the animated film?
Oh no, I don't.
It's the Stranger Things kid.
Which one? The one you don't like?
The one I don't like. Yeah, the one you like. Justin Long as Gomez Addams.
Ooh.
Nailed it.
Oh,
done.
Yes. I tell you what else I've... No, yeah. He
Justin Long, Alison Brie. Nailed it.
Justin Long, yeah, you're right.
Did I have a Fester? Will Arnett's not quite right.
Some fat bloke with a bald head, that's fine.
Yeah, you need like Jack Black, but less of a big star, so we'll do it.
Yeah.
Oh! Stephen Root.
Oh, he's probably a bit too old, but you're right.
He's a bit old, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Mate. Yeah, but yeah, that sort of thing. You're going for a friendly kind of cuddly Fester, aren't you?
Well, you know who'd definitely love to do it, but it'd be a bit too shit, and I'm not going to sign off on it.
Yeah.
Noel Fielding. Except he'd have to go bald. He'd have to shave off his head, and I don't think he'd agree to do it based on that.
Who's the kind of young but chubby bloke in TV at the moment who would shave his head?
You need like Zach Galifianakis, but he's too big a star. Bald, chubby actor. I'm Googling it.
Kind of lovable face.
Wallace Shawn. Matt Lucas. They're the two that have come up.
Hey, I tell you what, Matt Lucas going to Break America.
Matt Lucas would actually be pretty spot on for this, wouldn't he? He's the right level of actor. He's the right, he does a bit of work in America.
Yeah, go and get a nice big American contract.
He'd probably bring a hell of a lot of.
Do you know what? He would be actually really good at that. He'd knock it out of the park. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know what? Let's go with it. I'm happy with that. Justin Long, Alison Brie, Matt Lucas.
What supporting character that comes in as a guest will David Williams play then?
He'll play the headmaster at the school who's concerned about something Pugsley and Wednesday have done.
Yeah, he'll play it really badly.
Yeah. Oh, God. Do you want to know who's playing the roles in the animated film?
Go on, then.
It's much worse than our casting we've just done.
Okay, go on.
All right, so if you were casting this, who would you get in as Gomez?
This is just his voice, though, isn't it?
Yeah, just as the voice.
Well, if I was doing I'd just hire some professional voice
star.
actors. But yeah, if you want star names, Will Smith.
I think I'd go for. I think that's who I'd go to Steve Carell for. See what he could bring to it. They've gone with Oscar Isaac. Makes sense. Keeping the Latin heritage going.
Is this after his work on the which film was it? Where one of the X-Men films where he was the
Apocalypse.
Yeah, you know he can do good voices.
Morticia Addams. Who would you get him?
Christina Ricci.
Oh, I like it. They've gone big here. They've gone very big. I think I'd go for Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, I can see that.
They've gone for Charlize Theron.
Very good actor.
Be fine. Then, as I said before, we have Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things as Pugsley. And can you name a sort of... I mean, she's not even a child actor now. I think she's 20-something. But can you name a young girl actor who they might have got in as Wednesday? There's basically 2 or 3 go-to people you get to play young girls.
No.
I would have gone with Sophia Lillis from It. They've gone with Chloe Grace Moretz.
Oh, God. Yeah, of course.
I guess it was between her and Dakota Fanning. They went this way instead.
I'd definitely go with Dakota Fanning. What about Fester? Who's Fester?
They've gone with Nick Kroll.
Who's that?
Who is he's a comedian, really. He's got quite he's got the right kind of vocal quality. He does quite a lot of voiceover work. He's got a kind of quite a rounded kind of fun way of talking. He kind of, when he does a voice, he kind of sounds like this a lot. So yeah, that's actually pretty good. I like that. That's Go on. Can you guess who's playing Cousin It?
Yes, it'll be Frank Welker.
No. Go as absurd as you possibly could.
Cousin It goes... That's how he sounds.
I don't know if he's going to sound like that in this film. I've got a feeling he's going to sound a bit more for shizzle my nizzle dog.
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. Snoop Dogg is Cousin It.
That's
must be casting.
Surely just for the purposes of one gag where he talks and it doesn't sound like you think he's...
Yeah. So that's the level we're working at now with the Addamses. The Addams Family. The end.
The end.
Addams Family quote to go out on. What's a famous quote? John Quincy Adams. No, never mind. Bye. or as they say in the Addams Family household, hello.
It's the opposite. You get it. Bad bye. That's what they'd say.
We hope not to see you again next week for another terrible episode of Ascending Returns.